Next up is Dr. Anne-Josée Villeneuve from the Faculty Saint-Jean, who's going to talk to us about challenging the myth of good and bad French. Anne-Josée.
So who here speaks French? There you go. Bonjour. So there is a myth of good and bad French, real European French and Canadian French, which is bad. Everybody knows that. And conceiving of language in this way reinforces social discrimination. When we only use okay, there we go. When we only use this imaginary standard and measure other varieties against it, what we're essentially doing is telling speakers, people, that they are bad or they are good. Language is not about polar opposites, it's about nuance. And this project looks at at variety which has been said to lack a formal form of language, Quebec French. So in this project, we're bringing the full sociolinguistic spectrum of Quebec French into focus. We're using quantitative data in order to obtain a nuanced, fine-grain image of language variation, rather than a stereotypical, coarse-grain view of this variety. In order to do so, we look at interviews with public figures interviewed in two conversational settings. This method allows us to look at the continuum between casual and careful French in spontaneous styles, linking le français parlé, spoken French, with le français écrit, written French. The epitome, of course, le français écrit, of standard French. This project has three components. The first is description. We're describing formal, careful Quebec French using observable, empirical evidence. Second is theory. We're evaluating the validity of the model that you see over here for Quebec French. Is spoken language really on a continuum with respect to written French, or is there a sharp, abrupt shift between the two forms? The third component is application. Using evidence from stages 1 and 2, we will raise public awareness of language variation and bring awareness into the Canadian classrooms. Bring this awareness into Canadian classrooms. So, or as we say in Quebec French, in casual Quebec French, fac, what's the point? We want to challenge the myth of standard French, challenge the paradigm, fight language discrimination. But we also want Canadian students to shift between careful and casual French, depending on the context. In order to do so, we will develop a bilingual webinar for K-12 teachers. And as a team of sociolinguists and applied linguists, we strongly believe that by reaching educators, who in turn will affect their students, we can have a greater impact. So ultimately, by realizing that there's no such thing as good or bad French, we'll be able to equip Canadian students to be more authentic in French. Thank you.